Hey everybody, it's Lindsay J back with another video, and I'm so excited. Today is a fun podcast episode, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I will be posting like other fun videos too in the future, but for now it's my podcast just because I have so much going on right now in my personal life. But make sure you go over to my Instagram or my TikTok if you guys want to stay in connections with me more frequently. I post pretty much daily on those platforms. So without further ado, let's get on to the podcast. Dear Diary, there's something I've never said out loud before. Maybe because I didn't have the words, or maybe because when you're considered beautiful, people don't really want to hear your pain. But here it is. Beauty can be a blessing and a curse, a double-edged sword, a glittering veil that hides the blood underneath. Most people will never admit this, but beauty often becomes a kind of invisibility cloak. Not in the way that makes you disappear from sight, but in the way that makes your pain invisible. The moment you're labeled pretty, you're assumed to be fine. You're not supposed to be anxious. You're not allowed to be lonely. You're not expected to cry yourself to sleep or feel like an alien in your own body. You're beautiful, so what could possibly be wrong? But here's the ugly truth about beauty. It doesn't exempt you from suffering. If anything, it often isolates you inside of it. People project fantasies onto you. They assign you a life you didn't ask for, a life of ease, confidence, validation, and charm. But they never ask who you really are underneath the glow. They never stop to wonder if you feel like you're dying inside while you're smiling through photos or brushing your hair in the mirror, trying to feel something. They see beauty as a destination, not a disguise. Sometimes I wish I could peel the skin off my face and say, do you see me now? Not the surface, not the filtered image, not the girl you've romanticized or envied or fantasized about, but me. The human underneath, the aching, messy, raw self that doesn't always feel worthy, who sometimes stares into her own reflection and wonders if anyone has ever truly seen her at all. Because being beautiful can feel like being sculpted, not born. People mold you, they reshape your humanity into a statue, cold, still, admired but not held, worshipped but not heard. And sometimes I feel like I've been screaming behind a glass wall, and the prettier I look, the thicker that wall becomes. Nobody prepares you for the way beauty turns into a trap. How it creates this illusion that you have everything you need, so no one bothers to ask what you're missing. No one asks how you're really doing. No one thinks to check if you're breaking down in private after presenting perfection in public. And worst of all, sometimes even you forget that you're allowed to be broken. You start gaslighting yourself. Why am I sad? I shouldn't be. I have a good body, clear skin, a nice smile, people stare, people compliment me, so why do I feel empty? But beauty doesn't touch your soul. It doesn't resolve your trauma. It doesn't cancel out loneliness or fix abandonment wounds or make your relationships last longer. It doesn't teach you how to be loved for your mind, your heart, your essence. In fact, sometimes it does the opposite. It distracts from those parts of you entirely. The same people who compliment you won't sit with you in your grief. The ones who admire you figure won't hold your hand when you're spiraling. The people who praise your glow won't notice when your light is fake. And it goes confusing because beauty is a form of power. It can be... The same people who compliment you won't sit with you in your grief. The ones who admire your figure won't hold your hand when you're spiraling. The people who praise your glow won't notice when your light is fake. And it gets confusing because beauty is a form of power. It can open doors, it can offer protection, but it also distracts users. People who only want to possess it. People who will tear your soul apart just to say they held something desirable. People who will leave you as soon as your beauty no longer serves their fantasy. That's what hurts the most. When you're seen but not seen, desired but never understood. I think the deepest form of loneliness is when everyone sees your image, but no one sees your pain. So beauty becomes this silent battlefield, a place where you're expected to be grateful and smiling and humble and perfect, while you're fighting invisible wars just to feel human. And I want to say this for anyone who's ever felt the same. You are not crazy for feeling sad, even when you look good. You are not broken for feeling unseen, even when you're surrounded by people. You are not ungrateful for wanting to be known beyond your face. You are human. And beauty is not immunity. It's not a shield. It's not your fault. It feels like a mask some days. I've learned that the only real beauty that ever lasts in truth is truth itself. The kind that shows up when the makeup's gone, when the body's bloated, when the smile fades, and your soul is still here whispering, I just want to be real. I just want to be held. I just want to be seen. So maybe today I'll let go of the performance. I'll stop pretending that I'm okay just because I look okay. I'll make space for the messy, the tender, the unspeakable ache that hides beneath that pretty packaging, because I refuse to keep disappearing behind my own reflection. I am more than how I look. I am more than the love I'm offered based on surface value. And I deserve to be seen, really seen, even when I'm not glowing. Especially then. XOXO. LJ. Okay, so we did the intro. Today's intro was a little bit longer, but this to me is like such a deep topic because I just feel like this is something I experience a lot, you know, and we'll be getting into that, of course, in this episode. So let's finish up the intro and get straight into segment one. I don't know why, but I just came up, like, not came up with, but rethought of this song. It's like, chicka chicka choo, that's what my baby says, bow wow wow, and my heart starts pumping, chicka chicka choo, I'm never gonna stop, chicka means that I love you. Phineas and Ferb, yeah, love that show. Alright guys, so today's entry is about something we don't talk about enough. The loneliness, invisibility, and emotional weight that can come with being perceived as beautiful. And this is about the unseen truth behind what everyone else envies. Chicka chicka choo, that's what my baby says, bow wow wow, and my heart starts pumping. Okay. So, as somebody who has been in the content creator and modeling world now for many years, I just want us to unpack the social myth that beauty equates to confidence, joy, love, and success. I think there's so many times when people will look at somebody on the surface and think that, you know, because they look a certain way or because they dress a certain way, that means that they must be confident, they must feel good about themselves. But sometimes it's the individuals who try super hard to look good that are actually crumbling inside. There's so many times when I go to my runway shows or to the various entertainment events, and some of the most beautiful women I've ever met are also the most insecure. I mean, in the history of modeling, we already know that it's pretty common for models to have eating disorders, and the irony in that is that these individuals are considered above average beauty, yet still are trying to attain an unrealistic version of beauty. I mean, that's why I'm saying we can't ignore other people's pain just because it comes in a pretty package. There's so many times when, you know, people, you're just born attractive. If somebody's like naturally beautiful and they're just born attractive, then, you know, what are they supposed to do if they're hurting? It doesn't change the fact that they're hurting. If it's an individual who has no money, then, you know, being really beautiful isn't just magically going to equate to money. It's not that simple. But what happens is, instead of paying attention to us, to the individuals, others project onto us, you know. Other individuals project their version of what beauty is and what it means onto us because they may feel insecure in themselves. Most of the time, what people don't realize is that everybody is kind of like existing in a projection of their own beliefs. And what I mean by that is when you're walking around through the world, every individual person has their own perspective on how they do life and how they perceive it. And based off of their own set of beliefs or experiences, they can project that energy onto you, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes the energy can be anxious, insecure. It doesn't really matter. Stop, bugs. But when you're insecure, you start to project your insecurities outward onto the world, especially onto the individuals or things that make you feel more insecure. So if there's somebody out there who isn't confident in the way that they look, they're going to look at someone like me who they perceive as really beautiful, and they could start hating on me because they don't feel as though they're beautiful like me. They may start projecting a sense of negativity because they're threatened by my presence because of how I look. And that's why I'm saying there's a lot of danger in it, because it creates an isolation for the individuals who are beautiful. Because how do you go outward to the world and tell them that you're hurting if the world is constantly telling you that you shouldn't be hurting because of how you look? How are you supposed to differentiate when it's okay to hurt and when it's not? And honestly, this goes deeper than just beauty. We see stuff like this even across finances. There's so many times when people will look at other individuals who may have a lot of money, a lot of wealth, and they assume that they must have everything easy, that their life must be so good, that they must be so happy because they have all that money. But that's not how it works. It can buy you freedom, it can buy you time, it can buy you trips, and that's great, but it doesn't take away the pain that comes from life. But their pain just looks different. One of the best ways I can explain this to people is just think about how environment kind of dictates our lives and our experiences, right? So if somebody grew up in finances and money, they never had to worry about it. If they grew up in that environment, that's all they know. So when something bad happens, their brain is still registering it as something bad happening, just like an individual who comes from nothing and experiences a lot of struggles too, because what matters is how the brain is interpreting its experience. So how can we justify one person's harm over the other when in reality we're just two brains experiencing the same thing? And I know sometimes people can see that as insensitive to individuals who are struggling, but I see quite the opposite, because when we have this massive gap between those who have money and those who don't, there becomes this whole thing where people just get completely out of line when it comes to what's truly going on and what life really looks like, and vice versa, which can create lots of resentment on both sides, especially on the side of individuals who don't have money, so there's a massive disconnect between those groups. But the best way for us to bridge that gap is through empathy and compassion. And empathy and compassion are two things that are bonding, right? So how do humans bond? Typically we bond through experiences. Typically we bond through emotions. So if we can allow ourselves to accept the fact that other people's pain matters and is as equally difficult as ourselves, I believe that could help to bridge the gap. Because then what ends up happening is, oh my God, I recognize this person is hurting, and their brain is interpreting it the same way that I would interpret pain. So how can I help this person and make them feel better? Because I know I don't want to feel that way. It would scare me. And so I want to help this person, but sometimes when individuals are out of touch, they subconsciously lose empathy for the people at the bottom because they're so out of touch. Their lives are so different, so whatever. So, that they're just completely out of touch. And even if they don't mean to be that way, it starts to become subconsciously unethical. They lose a lot of empathy subconsciously just because of that massive gap and that whole being out of touch with reality. I know so many influencers, business people, and influential individuals, right? But the funny part is none of them have spent a day out in, you know, a shelter or actually giving back or helping. I know people who call themselves philanthropists but have no work with any kind of an organization. Just because you say you care about people doesn't actually make you a philanthropist. And I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's just the truth. Like, and it's harmful because you can't just say things and not do it, you know, like there's actually people struggling, and here you are cosplaying as a philanthropist to make yourself look good online when you don't actually help people at all. And that's my point. They're so out of touch with reality. It's all self-motivating. And you know what? Sometimes I can't be mad at them, because especially if somebody's on like the beginner side, they want to make their resume look good. And I get it, but be real. If you want to call yourself a philanthropist, if you want to call yourself a volunteer, then go out there and be that person. Don't claim that you're someone who you're not just because you want to look good online and have a bunch of people think you're a good person. You can't just do that. Doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. But that's why I like the idea of bringing up celebrities and stuff, because they're like the epitome of what people think are their goals in lives right now. So, you know, people will look at them and think of them as these idols, and because of that, they kind of dehumanize their favorite celebrities. And it's unintentional, you know, but they dehumanize them. They forget that they're real people. Even if they have a lot of money, even if they have a lot of followers, even if their lives are online all the time, they're still real human beings who experience life just like ourselves. So to expect for them to like be a certain way and to not fail or do bad things and mess up is really unrealistic. Can you imagine how many things in your life that you definitely know you would have never wanted anybody to film? Well, imagine if people were filming you all the time, no matter where you go, okay? And think about how you would feel if you didn't want that to happen. If you went out, you know, and people were always watching you, always filming you, and you just did something really embarrassing, guess what? You wake up to either being canceled or there's all these things going on, and it's overwhelming for anyone. Even if they do something wrong, I get it. I like to play devil's advocate because I really truly care about people. But my point is empathy. That's what I'm trying to get at here. That will be the common theme of this whole thing, because it's all about empathy. When you have empathy for another person, you will always be able to resonate with their pain. And when you resonate with their pain, you are capable of loving them too. And when you're capable of loving them too, you're capable of caring for them. And when you're capable of caring for them, you make the world a better place. And that's what we want to do. One of the things that I also feel can be dangerous about beauty, is how it acts as almost like an invisible, can't speak. So I also wanted to talk about how beauty can really turn into an invisibility cloak. It makes it, I'm sorry guys. I'm like, I can't exist right now. And now I want to talk about how beauty can act like an invisibility cloak, because it draws attention to your appearance, but it erases the rest of you. And this is actually part of the reason why I do what I do. When I first came out to LA, people would only recognize me for my attractiveness. They would always say, oh my God, you're so beautiful and I love your outfits. And don't get me wrong, I really like that too, but I was just feeling like I couldn't truly be myself in the way that I wanted to, and I couldn't, I wanted people to know me deeper than just my appearance. And I knew that everybody immediately asks each other for Instagram, so I decided, you know what? I'm going to post my diary on Instagram so that if I don't get the chance to really meet people you know, while I'm at the party, or I'm nervous and I can't really be myself for some reason, then they can get to know me online, you know? That way, when I go out, I can just be myself and I don't have to feel worried about anything or showing up as anyone else, because I would have literally been posting my diary this whole time, which is exactly what happens. Sometimes I go to events and, you know, I would have like written some kind of a diary entry that could be super emotional, and then I go to an event later and people are like, oh my God, are you okay? I read your diary. And and honestly, it feels great, because I'm like, wow, people actually pay attention to what I say. But at the same time, it's really, it's truly my diary. Like, everything I post is genuine. So, like, once I post my diary entries, a lot of the times it kind of helps me to like get rid of that pain. And so when I see people react to it or respond or come up to me, it like makes me so happy, like so happy that I could cry, because what you're responding to is my true, authentic diary. And I know so many people who wouldn't even share their diary with like their friends, let alone thousands of people on the internet. But hopefully I can lead by example and show people that vulnerability is strength, and there's nothing wrong with saying the things that you feel and want, even if some people are upset with it. Because as I was mentioning, beauty acts as an invisibility cloak. So nobody gets to try and get to know you. Like, nobody ever tries to truly see you. And, you know, especially when it comes to dating, for example, like a lot of guys, they project onto you. You know, they're like, oh, well, I just want the beautiful model and all this. But once you add depth to the equation and you show them like you're ready for something real, and you do all these things and you're not just a model, you do a lot of stuff with your life, you know, it becomes, wow, that's too much. Wow, you're too busy for me. Or do you have time for a relationship? And, you know, I don't like it, because you're constantly having individuals try to shrink you down to be more like palatable for their needs. You know, there's tons of men who try to mold me into their version of what a woman looks like, either to distance themselves from me because they feel too much, or to try and stay with a version of me that they've created. And it's just too much, okay? It's just too much. And I want people to realize that somebody could look really good on the surface and still not be doing okay. I mean, just think about how many times you had to show up in places when you weren't actually doing well. That's why I'm trying to lead by example and create a platform that's based off of authentic vulnerability, because by doing so, I can show you guys active communication and what it looks like to be open and to get such a positive response and feedback. And hopefully that will inspire others who watch my content to make positive content too, because they see that my positive content is working, and then the whole entire network just continues, and it's all positivity. That's all I want. So, you know, I want people to know that, because even me, guys, I know I'm really pretty. I'm a supermodel. I'm a runway model. I've been published. I've been billboards. I've traveled all over the world. I've done the whole 9 yards. And that's exactly why I wanted to make this episode, because it really impacts my life in ways that people do not understand. You know, I've been hated by individuals who are heavier set because I'm skinny. I've been hated by people because I'm attractive. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. On and on and on and on and on and on. People trying to find all the problems in me, all the things that aren't perfect because they think I'm too perfect. Like, you know, just all the things. And so I felt it was important to raise awareness, because even in my past, there were times when I used to be insecure in my size or my body, which again, to others could sound crazy because I'm really skinny. And now I don't feel that way anymore. I'm super happy, and I figured out like so many things about myself and grew since then that brought me to this point. So, you know, it's like, no, you can't just look at me and be like, oh yeah, she had it easy. Her life was easy. That's not the truth at all. It took me a long time of self-growth, of struggling, of hustling, of working hard, okay? I moved out of my home at 17 years old, okay, to a foreign country by myself, worked online as an English teacher to children and adults as their second language, and I just was living on my own the whole time and learned a second language. So I know what it's like to hustle, to work, to have that, you know, kind of hard struggle go on. It's not like I just got here and became positive and cheerful because that's it. Like, a lot of work was put into who I am now. And that's why I tell people you should never regret anything in your life, because if you loved yourself right now, you wouldn't, because you would realize even your failures were wins because they made you who you are today. But if you don't love who you are today, you don't love the past, because you don't like the past that created who you are. So that's why I'm always telling y'all, you need to start loving yourselves, because no matter how beautiful or how not beautiful you are, you can't get around the fact that you are human. You're going to experience pain, you're going to experience emotions, and the more you keep trying to pretend like you won't, stuffing them down and forcing yourself to suffer because you think that being vulnerable is weak and scary, even though you watch my content and like my content because of how vulnerable I am, but you can't do it yourself. maybe you should look in the mirror and focus on what it is you're so afraid of. Because if you're already ending up on content like mine, you're already the type of person who's trying to grow, who's elevating, who's learning, who's becoming a better person. Because, I mean, honestly, I'm hoping that my content helps to make people turn into better people for themselves. Because when you're happy for yourself, you make the world a better place. People don't realize that a majority of the time, we're functioning from our subconscious mind. Most of the time, how we're functioning is in our subconscious mind. So if you want to be a good person, or you want to be this or this or that, it's not enough to just say it on the surface of your mind. You need to integrate that into your subconscious. You know, you need to be able to love yourself even subconsciously in order to experience that positive change within your true life. That's why people end up with the cognitive dissonance, because their body doesn't feel the same as their head. Part of them, you know, their head is head first, but your subconscious is like, no, I want your heart, because that is what makes life. Not head, but heart, you know? Heart is what makes life worth living. And we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that love is important. We've forgotten connection is important. We spend all of our time picking apart people, their outfits, their looks, their bodies, their shoes, their clothes, their everything. We pick apart absolutely everything, then turn around and say, why is everybody so insecure? Like, wake up, y'all. What is that? Don't contribute to a world and society that you complain about because you're tired one day. If you're unhappy with how things are going, live the life of somebody who actually cares about how things are going, instead of completely ignoring the issues, except for complaining about them online and secretly with your friends, because you don't have the ability or the courage, really, to actually make a difference and change in your own life. But here's the irony that you're missing, that everybody's missing, is that doing this growth, going through these hard things, you will literally come out the other side much happier, much more fulfilled. But because you're afraid to even take the first step, you are missing out on an entire life that you could be living right now because you are afraid to take the first step. Okay? And I don't know about y'all, but that's not how you live your life. And I hope that you guys will take the first step, because trust me, once you take the first step, you can't stop climbing. You can't stop climbing. I need you. Oh, I love you. Why you always treat me bad? Okay. So now I want to talk about the fact that I feel like people misinterpret the fact that being desired isn't the same as being understood. And this is actually a fact that attractive people have a harder time finding love, because a lot of people will look at someone who's beautiful and confuse love and lust. And it's a heartbreak situation, you know, because you fall in love with somebody, but they only fall in love with the lust. And you know, you're left there in a situation that's one-sided. Some people can't leave those situations. I am pretty good at leaving guys just because I know exactly what I want. And dudes kind of suck. You gotta put them in their place, or else they don't know what they're doing. Actually, they don't know what they're doing, period. So if you're a woman who's timid and can't put them in their place and call them out or psychoanalyze them, yeah, you will never be respected by them. And that's just the high value men. At least that's what I would say, you know. But in general, though, I think that it's super important that we understand this, because even with dating, it can be really sucky, because like with some people, you'll try and tell them who you are, but because you look a certain way, they just cannot hear it. They don't want to hear who you truly are. They want to keep you in this box or this mold that fits their narrative, you know? And most of the times, for me at least, it's like they want me to fit that narrative so that they can justify leaving. You know, a lot of dudes will really care about me, they'll really like me, but because I don't have any red flags, I'm a walking green flag, and I add a lot of value to a relationship, it freaks them out, because a lot of them haven't experienced a real happy, stable life. So now my security is making them feel really scared. And it sucks, because I only have love to offer, yet I still get treated like everybody else who's toxic simply because of the way that I look and the job that I have. You know, even though I'm a philosophical writer who posts a philosophical podcast and, you know, is always doing other stuff, will consider myself more so a writer, and I am a cross-domain genius, but people don't see that. They don't care. They just don't. When I tell a dude, oh yeah, I'm a cross-domain genius, which I am, it's been tested, like, they don't listen. You know, I've even had people laugh at me when I say that I'm a philanthropist because they assume that I'm like what I was talking about earlier, the people who say they do philanthropy and then do nothing. But what they don't know is that I work with several organizations. I run my own little things, just like literally offering food and drinks to people on the streets in my own car, sometimes by myself. Now I'm getting groups of friends to do it with me. I work with several different organizations, volunteer at least once or twice a month. So I'm a real philanthropist. I invest my time, my money, my everything. And you know what though? The most valuable thing I offer is my time, okay? Most of the money that people are giving to the shelters and all these things, like, again, a real philanthropist would understand this, but most of those facilities aren't safe, and the money isn't going towards individuals who truly need it. There's so many situations where, like, these shelters, they don't allow drugs inside, so you have two situations where people will attempt to quit their drugs, but because they're not in a controlled environment, they go through like constant relapses, or they have, like, I can't remember what that's called, but like a shock when your body is, you know, in recovery and you are getting really sick and stuff. Like, they go through that and they can become harmful and a danger. And like a lot of times, like, people are put into rooms, you know, all together with different people, and that can be really dangerous. So a lot of kids, they can't be in those shelters. So what ends up happening? They end up on the streets with like their parents. Some homeless people will literally adopt kids on the streets, you know, because they create their own community. And I swear to you, all my life, I absolutely love helping them because they're way nicer than a lot of people I know who have everything. Actually, probably everybody I know who has everything. I remember one of the things that like made me so happy. I remember there was just a little bit of food left that I was serving at the park, and like one of the homeless guys was like, okay, but I want you to save the rest for him. And that may seem like such a small gesture, but like, you gotta understand, like, these are people who don't eat for several days. They are like really, really down on their luck. Okay, they're coming to us dirty, sometimes mentally ill, you know, so for him to be like, you know what, I don't want to see this other person starve even though I'm starving. That's the mentality I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Because the thing that is the gap is that in the wealthy community, you have empathy for each other. In the bottom of the rungs, you have empathy for each other. But there's a massive gap between wealth and, you know, individuals who don't have it. Obviously, a lot of that ties into our government system and systemic issues that we have, of course, but it's the reality, you know, and because of that, we lose all this empathy, and we look at people, judge books by their cover, and then assume that we know them because of what they do. That to me is so crazy. Unless you sit down with someone and you truly get to know them, and you know, like, you can't just say, oh yeah, now I know this person. Like, no, you don't. And if you're not able to listen to what they're saying, or you're so traumatized that you can't hear what they're saying because it doesn't fit your narrative, it's not them that's the problem, it's you. You're the problem. And you're not even the problem on them, you're the problem in your own life, man. So many times do I see people I love and care about self-sabotage their own happiness because they're afraid of it. When you're afraid of happiness, it's because of the fact that you don't believe you deserve it, which is crazy. And it's like, imagine how much pain you have to go through, how much trauma you have to go through in order to convince yourself that you are not worthy of love. And then I'm going to come in here, pour all my love into you, and for some reason I'm a bad guy because I look like a model. And I work like a model, so I must just be a model, and that's it. Attractive, okay, you're smart, but that's it. Like, you know, it's just really frustrating. I don't like that we have that kind of a situation going on. I think it's crazy that we treat people like this, because at the end of the day, what we need is empathy and compassion. You guys aren't understanding that we function mostly through our subconscious. So when we lack empathy and compassion, guess what? We're dehumanizing our, like, you know, our opposites, our opposing sides. We're dehumanizing them. People who are wealthy, they turn their other eye when they see homeless people on the streets. So guess what? They're subconsciously dehumanizing them. They're numbing themselves from an entire group of people because their struggle makes them uncomfortable. Do you not see how that causes harm? Because once you avoid something long enough, you learn to stop valuing it. And the more it makes you uncomfortable, the more you avoid it. Then you have the individuals who aren't wealthy and they're like down in their luck. The system does not help them. They don't have any real stability. Sometimes they're sick. Sometimes their families have gone. Sometimes they have mental disabilities. Like all types of stuff going on. All types of stuff going on. All types of stuff going on. So yes, of course they're gonna look at the dude who drives past them in a Porsche but refuses to put the window down and give them money. Yeah, of course they're gonna start dehumanizing you too. Of course. Of course. And that's what happens when we don't help each other. That's what happens. I mean, even the LA fires, hey, I'm glad that things got taken care of, but let's just see that, for example. That was the only time that I've seen my friends volunteer, okay, was during those fires. And you know who was targeted the most in those fires? Wealthy individuals, okay? So while everybody was helping wealthy individuals and crying about how they lost their homes, there were a bunch of homeless people who also had to deal with the similar issues and don't have anywhere to go, okay? So how is it that we can come together to help the rich, but we can't come together to help the poor? Really? Like that should tell us something about our society, about our culture, because it's deeper than politics. They want to keep us distracted in the fact that it's politics, Republicans versus Democrats. But that's just noise. It's noise. They want us separated so we forget about each other. Because the more we dehumanize each other, the more manipulated, like the easier it is to manipulate our culture. The easier it is to manipulate our society. And the more they can manipulate our society, the easier it will be for them to profit, because they learn our behavior, because they're curating our behavior, and then using that data to then offer us products that fit their need for money. That's literally what it is in a nutshell. That's what it is in a nutshell. And there's just so many dangers in dehumanizing each other, because it's so subconscious. So they keep us distracted. They're like, well, hey, if these people are fighting these people, then they won't be able to focus on the fact that it's actually hurting both of them, because they'll be too busy fighting each other. They can't see shit because they're fighting each other. So they're not registering what's actually going on. You get what I'm saying? And then you tie to the fact that there's ignorance involved, that people don't know things. And that doesn't make them bad people, but it does make them harmful to society if their ignorance causes negative impact on other people's lives. And the root issue in all of this is empathy. Because once people see you as their opposition now, you're dehumanized. You're not, and it's subconscious. Like, you know, if I was going up to somebody and I was like, oh yeah, you dehumanized that person, they're not gonna say, yeah, I did, I know. They're gonna be upset with me for calling them out. And then they're gonna think about it later and be like, man, maybe she was right. And then they most likely will never see me again. Because a lot of people can't handle that level of psychoanalysis. But to anybody out there, if you ever want me to psychoanalyze you, I got you. My like genius mind like immediately reads a person like a book. And honestly, it's great for what I do, because it's one of the main reasons I know how to give back so well, and how I know how to write and all these things is because I can read human behavior instantly and then satisfy individuals' needs subconsciously, which is why people connect with me. And I love doing that because I love connecting with people. So, you know, it's a win-win situation. And one of the things that I think could probably be the most harmful is that a lot of people end up having this pressure to maintain their image. Especially here in California, I've noticed, well, honestly, in the entertainment industry in general, a lot of people curate these personas or versions of themselves that they think will do well online, and typically they do. But the problem is, when they're not doing fine, they have to keep up their illusion. You know, they can't show certain things or be a certain way because their brand doesn't match their real life. Their image isn't matching who they truly are. So they're constantly forced to suppress their real selves in order to exist within the confines of their insecurity. You know, because these personas are curated because of the fact that they feel insecure. A lot of entertainers become celebrities because they were mistreated when they were younger, criticized for being different, and so there's like a chip on their shoulder of like, I need to prove myself to the world. You know, maybe not every single one, but a lot of them. You know, they're like, I need to prove myself to the world. I need to like get all the success. I need to grow and And there's nothing wrong with that, but, you know, they curate these versions of themselves that they think will do well. And even once it does do well, they go through a lot of mental breakdown. That's why child stars have a hard time, because they don't have a sense of identity. They spend all of their child lives acting in different characters. They have no real sense of personal identity. So, you know, of course, that person is going to curate an image. But once you grow up, the image no longer suits you because it doesn't match who you are in the present. And then you keep forcing yourself to be fine. You're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. But you're not fine. You know, you're not. You're trying to be, but you're not. You're going to these events hoping each time that maybe it will be different. And the reason you're going is because you're hoping for that next big move that will just bring you to the top of your career. But guess what? It doesn't truly come, you know. I mean, yes, they do, don't get me wrong. I'm not disbelieving anybody's dreams. I do think they happen, but sometimes people don't realize that the places in which they do happen are not these events and parties. You know, those are places that are a lot of fun and great networking, but especially if you want to be a content creator, most of your success is going to come from being at home. So, you know, that's why I'm like, it hurts too, because then I'll know the real version of someone, and then I see how they curate themselves online, sometimes over edit their photos to where they just don't even look the same. Their bodies don't even look the same. I'm like, oh my God, that was so clearly edited with AI. And it's heartbreaking because it shows to me that so many people are curating these images and putting themselves in this tiny little box that limits them because of their own insecurities, when the craziest part about it is a majority of all of the most successful people in entertainment history did not replicate someone else. They showed up as themselves, and they were so boldly themselves that it changed the industry. Nobody cares. Like, if you're, like, that's why I tell people, if you're an actor, you can't just, going to school doesn't make you any more of an actor than someone else, okay? It doesn't change anything, because acting is an embodiment of someone else. It's versions of you that exist through the lens of someone else. That's a skill set that you either have or you need to grow and have. You know, you can't just be like learning the words and that's it. You need to embody the person, understand your character so well that you understand how they would react to different situations. You know, you want to be able to understand your character so well that you understand how it acts in different situations, or how your character might respond to certain things, you know, and that is really what helps. But even then, I'm saying, people curate these personas, and it can be a danger for them to have to keep going, because like just think about it this way. It's like, once you have a persona and that's just who you are, especially online, it's like making friends is tough, going out is tough, because the version of you that you show the world isn't the real version of you. So how can you even know if any of the people around you are real? How can you know if any of the people around you are real if you aren't even being yourself? It doesn't make sense. If you're not showing up, you're not communicating, you're not doing things for yourself, then what do you expect from the world, you know? And that's why it's like they get all these internalized pressures to just not break down or not show the pain, because it would ruin the illusion that they've curated. But the thing for me is that, like, most of the time, vulnerability actually helps people's brands. It helps people's, like, platforms. It's just that they don't want to do it because it's scary. That's it. And I get it. I mean, as somebody who posts their inner world all the time, I totally get why it can be intimidating. But at the same time, if you're living a good life where you have nothing to hide, then being yourself wouldn't be such a big deal. It's like, well, are you getting into trouble? Are you doing things that you don't like that you're doing, and that's why you're doing this, that's why you're curating a performance, is because you don't truly think that you are the best version of yourself in reality, so you're curating it. Like, you know, if that's the case, then you can't curate that persona. You need to, again, embody it. You need to learn how to become the person that you want, instead of just waiting for life to come at you and work. It doesn't work that way. You'll do better being yourself. You know, this is what causes celebrities to off themselves and do bad things to themselves and OD and all types of stuff is because of this. They create these personas, and then once they go viral, or once they get a popularity, or once they're successful, they get like an identity crisis, because they're like, they have two split versions of themselves, the version that they are at home and then the version that they show the world. And when there's two separate versions of yourself that you're constantly having to battle with, it's like, of course you're going to be struggling a little bit. Like, of course it's going to be, tough to do those things. So that's why at this point I'm just like, I don't like that we're using beauty as an excuse to ignore people's pain. I don't like that we're using money as an excuse to ignore people's pain. I think we should allow for people to hurt and then encourage them to change and grow. I don't really think we should have any certain level or scale on what's bad. Bad is bad. If you're hurt, you're hurt. You shouldn't have to be, downsizing your pain in order to, be respectful to another person. It's like, that's how it works. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Like, there was once a time when none of us spoke any words, and the only way we knew how to get around was through physical touch, through, body movements and learning each other and all of those things. And over time, we've created a society of individuals who just completely disconnect from each other, completely lost the meaning of what true love, happiness, and kindness even means. So many people who are performative nice. They pretend like they're good people, but don't actually live the life of a good person. They say things that aren't good. They do things that are unkind. And if you're doing things consistently that are unkind to another person knowingly, you're just simply not a good person. That doesn't mean that, you always will be this way. You can definitely change. But if you're knowingly causing harm on others to protect your own image or ego or pride or sensitivities, that's just being kind of a bad person. It's dysfunctional. It's very toxic. You can't treat people you can't treat people like that just because you're hurting. And hurt people. And that's why I encourage everybody to always try and heal through their pain. If you can't afford therapy, you can't afford anything, please go buy books. Buy books that teach you how to heal. Just like, one of the good ones I would say is How to Heal from Emotionally Immature Parents, because I know a lot of people out there who don't have strong relationships with their parents, so that's a good, recommendation for people who are trying to heal from maybe childhood wounds or whatever. So that's why I'm telling you guys, you have the capacity to do it. You're just not doing it because you don't believe in your own capabilities. You don't believe in your own capacity to do something. So instead of trying, you give up before you can try because you're so afraid of failure, because you think if you fail, that dictates who you are again. But what people don't realize is that failure is actually the best way to grow. It's the only way we can truly grow. If you don't fail, you can't learn anything and get to that next level. You have to fail. That's why I don't understand why people care so much about like looking dumb, doing something foolish, being embarrassed. I don't know why you care about that. Like, who cares what somebody else is saying? Go have fun, man. We live this life one time. You're not living your life for anybody else. You're living your life for you. If you want to go dance on the sidewalk in the middle of the street, go ahead and do it. Okay? I mean, why not? What's stopping you? What is stopping you? Your fear of how others will interpret you? If that's the case, then you need to, incorporate some more self-love into your breakfast. You need to incorporate some self-love into your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, babes. Because, come on. You're amazing. You're beautiful. You're a star. You need to know who you are. Because once you know who you are, everybody else will too. And you won't need to curate a performance. You won't need to have a condensed version of you, because you'll understand that you are perfect just the way you are. Alright guys, I put on a long sleeve, so I was starting to get cold. So let's get back into it. And I want to mention something that I mentioned in my diary. I said that, I refuse to keep disappearing behind my own reflection. What I meant by that is that, I'm just so tired of people only seeing me for my persona. I mean, I don't have a persona really, because I literally released my diary, so I don't think I could possibly have one. But I'm just tired. I was tired of people looking at me for my beauty, and that's it. I don't want to just be a beautiful bottle. Like, I want to be a real person who has depth, who does things, who, my biggest passion in life is actually writing, as you guys probably know. So writing and philosophy are my passions. So, sometimes it can feel demeaning So sometimes it can feel demeaning when people try to question my intelligence or downgrade my experience, or, you know, it can be hard. And on top of that, like, guys, I'm a literal genius, okay? With an IQ estimated to be about 185. So I'm really intelligent, okay? And I'm not trying to be boastful. I say this because I want you to understand how disheartening it can be when you're treated like, you know, you're less than, or you're treated like you're unintelligent, or that your opinions don't matter when you're literally one of the smartest people in history. It's kind of harmful towards my mental health sometimes, because I know I'm really pretty. I get it, you know. Even I am still kind of adjusting to that fact of how smart I am. And I know that because I'm in a pretty package, I don't look like all the other people, okay? My IQ is higher than Albert Einstein, and I don't look anything like him, you know? When people think of who a smart person would be, they definitely don't look at, you know, a black woman in heels who's also a content creator and a supermodel too, even though they do a lot of philanthropy and philosophical writing. You know, I am excited though, guys, because I started a Patreon, and I really would love for you guys to join, because your girl needs to build some money. And this is a great way to support me, especially because writers obviously have a really hard time at monetizing. So I would really appreciate it. On my Patreon, you guys would be getting my full-length diary entries. On Instagram right now, I'm only able to post like a certain amount because I have a maximum of how many characters. That's why I created my Patreon, because there you'll get the full-length diary entries. And honestly, I may release them like every day, or maybe even twice a day, because I write in my diary a lot. So the goal is for my Patreon to be a more intimate setting where people can have a little bit more of an in-depth experience when it comes to my Dear Diary series, and maybe even some sneak peeks from the book that I'm writing, which I will be calling The Universal Language of Love, which is my philosophy on how love is actually a universal language. So stay tuned for that one too. That's probably going to take me a long time to finish writing, but stay tuned for it. You know, I also think that it's really important that we see people for who they are, because when we don't do that, we start to normalize the personas. Not just for that individual or that individual person's personas, but we actually like reinforce the fact that personas are good, you know, when we don't see each other for who we truly are. And I just feel like there's so many times when like people can pick up on like these unsaid things that people aren't saying in a room, but they ignore it. They don't say it. And that's fine if you don't say it, but if you could tell that somebody is hurting or struggling, you should at least think about it. I mean, I always ask, but it depends on the person, because sometimes people like don't really give off the energy of somebody that I should be asking how they're doing, because sometimes people will feel like, oh my God, do I look bad? Because they don't realize that I can read people so well. They don't understand that. So in their world, they're like, oh my God, do I look tired? And I'm like, no, I'm highly perceptive. It's one of my gifts. So I can read through you like a book, okay? Like you're Windex clean, okay? So that's why I'm like, I see it. I see the truth that everybody's hiding all the time. When I walk into a room, I can feel the energy instantly. I know when people are struggling, when they're sad, when they're pulling it together, when they're scared, nervous, anxious. I can feel it. I can always tell. That's part of why going to parties and doing events can be so overwhelming for me, because I feel like I could just feel all the energy. All at once, and it just gets super, you know, intimidating sometimes. My dog wants a peanut. Here you go, Barry. And that's why for me it's just so important that people also realize that they're not alone, you know, that your struggles really truly do matter, and that you deserve love. I just feel like I can't say that enough, because I know like there are people who will repeat that to themselves in the mirror over and over and over again, but they still won't live a life that proves the fact that they love themselves, you know? So I feel like if you can't remind yourself, and if it's not ingraining itself into your brain, here I am to tell you that you are worthy of love, that you deserve everything that you want out of life, but it's up to you to make that life happen. It's up to you to make that life happen. You can't wait around for the things that you want to just come at you. Life is hard and it sucks, but at least be you. Be yourself, man. Because even the industry itself, people want uniqueness. Everybody's following trends. try and act like someone else, try and be like someone else. And it's a waste of time, because even the people who are at the top and searching for people, they want the outliers. That's what makes a star. So if you're just like sitting around in a pool of, you know, red circles, unless you're a blue dot, then you're probably not going to get noticed. And the only way to be a blue dot is to be yourself instead of making yourself red. You know, like, just be yourself. Be yourself. Be yourself. That's all I can say over and over again. I just feel like you, at some point, you're gonna have to get to a place where you like, you just don't care what people think anymore. Like, you just get so fed up with life that you're like, you know what? I don't even care what they think anymore. I'm just gonna do me. That is when you will experience true happiness, is when you start like loving yourself so much that you don't care about what other people say of you. You know, I mean, you can take constructive criticism, of course, or advice when it comes to life growth and motivation. But other than that, you should not care about how people think of you, how you dress, how you look, how you talk, what you do. Screw them all. Why care? You don't know them half the time. They don't truly know you either most times. So let it go. I know it's hard, but sometimes the hardest things we have to do in our lives are the things that will actually hurt us in the moment. But long term, we'll be thanking our past selves that we didn't. I know so many people stuck in relationships that are toxic simply because of how long they've been in it, not realizing that there's literally someone else out there 10 times better who will treat them a lot better than what they're getting right now. But because they're so comfortable in their situation, they don't want to jeopardize what they have going on because they're comfortable. They don't want to be alone. They think being alone will suck. And sometimes they're insecure that maybe they won't be able to find anyone else. So what happens? They stay stuck. They stay stuck in a reality they're not happy in, and question why it's like that. If you're not happy where you're at, it's because of the fact that you've outgrown your environment. And if that is the case, get out. Don't stay stuck, because you're ruining your life. You got so much potential, so much more coming for you, but because you keep putting up these blocks and you keep putting up these barriers for your future, you're missing out on all the success. And sometimes those barriers look like current day pleasures, okay? Going out all the time could be fun, but again, if you're doing that all the time, you're wasting a lot of your time investing into other people, other things. You're listening to other people's music in the club, so they're all making money from it. You're going out with promoters, you're going out with influencers who are all most likely making money there. But you're not making anything, so why are you there? To have fun all the time and do nothing and get nothing out of it? Is that what you find an idol to be? Is somebody who takes everything from you and offers you nothing in return but lights and dancing? And you most likely won't even dance because nobody dances in the section, and you're too insecure to be yourself, so you won't actually dance by yourself. It's a terrible cycle, and I veto it. I think we need to change it up and get our shit together and stop acting like we are too cool for school when we're breaking down, and pretending like we're the best in the world when we're breaking it down and we're not doing great. Be real with yourself, be real with your life, so that you can have the life that you actually want. You can't get there without breaking yourself down to rebuild yourself up. It's not possible. You gotta break down a burning building before you build a new one. Okay, so let yourself break down so you can grow even taller. It's just life. And the more people push themselves to go against life, the more you push yourself against the wave of life, the harder you're making your life. You need to embrace pain and suffering and anxiety. If you embrace it and you allow yourself to take it in and experience it for what it is in that moment, eventually you can come back down to the groundedness energy and be like, okay, we're okay. Like, that was the moment. That was hard. This is hard. Life is hard. But I will be okay as long as I stay me. What are you looking at, kitty? Well, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's listened to my podcast today. I love you guys so very much. Okay, we're building slowly. Please make sure to check out my Patreon. I would really appreciate it because I'm trying to start monetizing, and it can be really tough to do that as a writer and beginner content creator. And at my Patreon, you'll be able to get so much more of my writing, way longer diary entries, that's for sure. So I would love to see you guys over there. And I have like a bunch of fun little things for you guys over there. Dear diary, they saw the glow but not the grief. They praised the symmetry, but not the silence it came with. No one ever asked the pretty girl if she was okay, because beauty is supposed to be enough. Because when you look like everything, people assume you need nothing. But let me say this now, for every person who's ever felt trapped in their own reflection. You are not alone. You are not broken because you feel invisible in plain sight. You are not dramatic for wanting to be seen beyond your skin. There is more to you than the way light hits your cheekbones. There is more to your story than admiration could ever capture. And maybe you've had to smile when you wanted to scream. Maybe you've been desired but never truly held. Maybe people fell in love with your image but never stayed for your soul. But you are allowed to take the mask off now. You are allowed to be soft, to be messy, to be human, because beauty was never meant to hide you. It was meant to honor you. And if the world forgets to do that, let this be your reminder. You are not just decoration. You are depth. You are not just admired. You are worthy. You are not just seen. You deserve to be known. And I promise, there is a kind of love that sees through the reflection and holds what's real. You haven't missed it. It's coming. XOXO, LJ. Oh, Leah got all freaked out. It's okay, Bugs. Oh my gosh. I always do that for every episode because I'm like, you know, it's all just me. And I know everybody's like, oh my God, you should have guests. But it's hard because the type of stuff that I talk about is not things that like people would necessarily want to talk about publicly. You know, I discuss a lot of insecurity issues, a lot of like just vulnerable topics, and not many people want to do that publicly. I mean, that's exactly why I make the kind of content that I make. And I'd be cutting us short by getting somebody who's not going to go there, you know? I need somebody who's ready to go there, who's gonna take it to the depth, take it to the deep end. But I love you guys so much. I hope I can see you guys out on Patreon. If not, go over to my Instagram, my TikTok, or one of the places, and I will love to see y'all over there. So, I hope you have the bestest day ever. I love you so very much, and I will see you in the next video. Peace on the street.